You're listening to First Fossil. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first fossil. Hello and welcome to First Fossil, a show where we learn together how to take that first fossil toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushola, and today's special guests have known me since before I was born. They have been huge influences on my life. They kind of sort of helped raise me. I think my older brother probably raised me more than that, but that's debatable. And they're cool people. I think you guys would like them a lot. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to my awesome parents, Dr. Wally and Curleen Olushola. Hey, Mom and Dad. How are you doing?
Hi. How are you?
I'm great. Just trying to stay alive and well during quarantine all the way over here in Kentucky. In case you guys don't know, I'm in Kentucky and my parents and my older brother are in California. So we don't see each other a lot except through screens. And then the pandemic, so definitely less often this year than usual. So yeah, I think doing okay.
I love California. I love the color. I love the colors. I love outside. I love whenever we're walking, I can see all of the fruit trees, and I want to pick everybody's fruit, but I can't.
As you can see, my mother's the mischievous one of the two. So yes, constantly have to be like, Mom, you can't pick that. That's not yours. We go to the farmer's market. So why don't each of you introduce yourselves? Why don't we have ladies go first? Mom, just a little bit about yourself.
I was born in the Caribbean, the island of Grenada, migrated here, attended college. I started at Oakwood College, and then, which is now Oakwood University, and then transferred to the University of Alabama in Huntsville, where I did my degree in nursing and worked for a while in New York. Came to Loma Linda University, and that's where I met Wally. Did my master's degree in public health with a concentration in international health at the time, which is global health. And met and married my husband. So that's basically me. And we raised three beautiful children. Kevin was born here in California, and Candace and Kellon were born, Candace and Hershey, where Wally was doing his residency in pediatrics, and Kellon in Philadelphia, where he was doing residency in psychiatry. So we have moved around the United States quite a bit. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Awesome. How about you, Dad?
Yes, I'm Wally Olushola. I was born in Nigeria, West Africa, in the city of Ibadan, which is in the state of Oyo State. And around the age of 9, my mother and my younger sibling, we moved to England. So we lived in London for approximately 9 years. Right? So I finished my elementary and high school and started my first year of college. We moved back to Nigeria. I eventually went to the Polytechnic, which is in Ibadan, before I went to medical school at University of Lagos. When I finished there, I went to work in the Caribbean island, got a contract to work there for about a year and a half. And after that, I moved to the United States and found myself at Loma Linda University, where I met my wife, and we shortly got married, had our first child, Kevin, and then I got a pediatric residency at Hershey, Pennsylvania. Did that for a year before I went to Albert Einstein and did my 4-year residency there in Philadelphia. After that, we moved to Kentucky, where I worked. We had a private practice, and we closed the practice and moved to Maryland, where I worked for the Eastern Shore Hospital Center, a forensic facility. And then now we are finally here in California. We're back to where we started. We just best of friends and happily enjoying ourselves.
How precious.
Absolutely.
Hey, this whole trip around the United States, guys. Did you hear that? They were like, let's do the West Coast and then all the way to the East Coast and then down to the South and back up East and then back to the West. They just made this loop-de-swoop-de through their whole lives.
I got to tell you this. Yesterday we were coming home and I told her, I said, isn't it wonderful that after all these years, 34 years of knowing each other, we are still happily married and
Best buddies.
And we're best of friends. Yeah. And we're very protective over each other and we love each other tremendously. And so, we're just a really happy couple. No misery for us. We're just happy.
Yeah.
That is so cute. We need more of that in America, right, guys? Man, that's so nice. Well, I'm glad you guys are willing to talk about that a little bit because I want you guys to have the opportunity to kind of share your journey because it's so different from the quote-unquote American story of the American family. And having been raised by the two of you in America as a first-generation American kid, I think the skill sets and the tools and the backgrounds that you guys have kind of make how you guys see relationship and marriage and parenting different from the culture that I was raised in. So I guess this is like one epic series of pasos that you guys have taken over the years. So can you guys talk a little bit about, you guys met at Loma Linda and you start dating. How did you guys navigate that? Because Mom, you were, you'd been in the States longer than Dad, so you're a little bit more acclimated to the culture, but still a foreigner in this country, a Black foreigner at that. And then Dad was coming new into the country as another Black foreigner, and the two of you start dating. How did you guys figure out your compatibility in relation to the cultures you were coming from, as well as the culture that you guys are both planting yourselves in?
Well, for me, my culture is a little bit more liberal than his culture. So we're a little bit more westernized. So for me, dating and making the decision to who we marry was a lot up to us. So, sort of similar to the American culture. It didn't have to depend on what our parents said. Sometimes your parents got involved in it, but mostly it was our decision. We meet somebody, we talk to the person, we like that person, and we announce to our parents, this is who we're going to marry. Well, that was totally different from my husband's culture. It was like when we started dating, we started going out, we started talking. After a few months of going out and started developing feelings for each other, well, at least I started developing feelings. He started developing feelings, I would hope, because he was constantly calling me.
Yes, I was having feelings.
Oh my gosh.
He was calling me all the time, constantly.
Oh my word.
Because he was studying for boards and he would call me at 2:00 in the morning. He's like, girl, what are you doing? Sleeping.
Yeah.
That's
not the best advice.
Listen to the song. I'm listening to the song. Some sort of love song he's listening to, and he wants me to listen to it. I was like, okay, good night.
Well, here's
guys, what not to do. Please don't call your girl at 2 a.m. to tell her you listening to some love song. Thank God we can text now, because you can save your little playlist and text to her at 9 a.m. Okay?
Well, here's the thing. When you've got the love bug, you got the love bug.
Oh, Lord. The love bug don't know what time it is, apparently. Doesn't go to sleep at reasonable hours.
And then after we, going back to that story, after we were talking for a couple months, he announced to me, I don't get your feelings all involved, or don't get too deep in your feelings, because if my parents say we can't marry, then I can't marry you. I was like, excuse me? Hold it. Kind of late for that. It's a little late for that. The thing about it is, the first day I met him, I'd already called my girlfriend that first night. I met him at the library of Loma Linda University. Actually, I called my girlfriend. We didn't text at the time. I called my girlfriend, and she was in Huntsville, Alabama that night, and we talked. And I said, I think I met my husband, and we planned a wedding on the phone. So it's like I'd already known. So all of his protest is like, thou doest that protest, but thou art my husband.
Okay. Out here making declarations. Like, you can say whatever you want, sir. We's going to get hitched, okay?
Right. So when he was protesting that, oh, I'm going to live in a house with 5 German shepherds, I'm like, and me, and me, and the kids. Like, I'm never getting married. I'm gonna have 5 German shepherds in my house. I'm like,
okay. So that's like a big culture shock for you, because that's not something that they do in Grenada. That's not a cultural norm, but it is in Nigeria. So you knew in your heart of hearts, like, I'm still gonna marry this guy, but you respected his culture in what he said.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some people would start arguing and would be like, "How do you mean? What do you mean this? And how can you cannot make a decision?" I just said, "Oh, okay." And my thing was just respecting that and going home and going to my dorm and praying about it and said, "Lord, if this is what it's supposed to be, then allow me to find favor in His parents' eyes." And let them see that this is what it's supposed to be. And then I asked him to explain that culture so that I would understand what he meant by, if my parents doesn't approve, and then he explained the culture, and he will explain that to you.
Well, in the Yoruba culture, especially among the Christian Yorubas, and especially in our household, we really don't have divorces. And the reason why is, one, getting married is a very serious thing. It's a family affair. And the way we are raised is that the parents and the siblings that have raised you, they love you. They love you deeply. And if you're blindly in love, they can help you to navigate and say, this is not good. And they can sit you down and say, here's why you should not marry this person. And secondly, we always feel more comfortable that we have the blessings of our parents. And it really goes back to the biblical days. Abraham blessed Isaac, Isaac blessed Jacob. And so it is part of our culture that if you marry without the consent of your family, that's a sort of a total disrespect. And so they are involved. And the great thing about that actually is that if they approve somebody to be your spouse, you're going to have a very difficult time divorcing that person. We don't do it. You also cannot get a divorce without the permission of the family. It's not about the court. The court has nothing to do with it. It's a family. Even though I live here in the United States, you really can't divorce unless you can prove that your spouse is having an affair. So it's really not only for my protection, it's for the protection of all of us. And we believe in keeping the family together. And so part of the responsibility of the family, the extended family, is to keep the family together. So it was I was very joyful when my father gave me the blessing, my mother gave me the blessings, and my siblings also gave us the blessings. So yeah, we met in the library, and when I saw her, I was she's the most beautiful. I always tell her the thing I love about her most is her skin. She has a beautiful skin. And I would have been very hurt, very sad if my parents did not approve our marriage. But they did, so we've been together all these years. And having the support of our parents having the support of our siblings makes a world of difference because they love both of us. And so, there's the worst thing you can do when you get married is to go into marriage where your future in-laws don't like you. You're going into a battlefield.
Mm.
And that can only, for the most part, it can only get worse. And it sets a foundation for a divorce and bitterness and anger and frustration. So, but when the two family members, my mother and her mother get along very well. When they meet each other, it's like, wow. So that's the way it should be, the two families become one. It's not just the two of us, but the two family sides become one. We become one family. So.
Yeah, that is something I think my brothers and I have had a challenge trying to explain to people when it comes to how we date, or I guess how Kevin used to date because he's married, but just how we would step into a relationship, because culturally our parents are very much involved. Now, for mom and dad's more talking about, you usually get permission to marry, right? Not necessarily to date.
Not necessarily to date.
Right. But I don't know where we came up with this or how we decided this, but Kevin, Kellen, and I have always thought if we're going to seriously be with someone, we actually start off asking permission from the dating side. And I think it's so that way who we're with, our parents are not only in the loop, but they are supportive from before we make a decision to go into marriage. And so, we feel like we get more of the guidance from people who have successfully been married and have successfully navigated life together. They can guide us in our preparation stage to be engaged to be married versus just figure it out and whatever. But it almost allows us to have a door open to not fall on our faces in the process. And that's neither of my parents ever corrected us on that or thought y'all could just go with date and then just come at engagement. You guys have supported us in doing that. I don't recall how or why we started doing that, but it was just, you guys have just always been okay with that.
Well, it started in the sense that for us, with our relationship, because we were far away from parents, the permission to marry comes from the permission to go into the relationship. So with us, dating and so is not a frivolous thing. You don't just go and date and date and date and date and date. The dating is dating with the intention to marry.
Right.
If you see the person as a potential spouse, there's no need to go out on dates and stuff.
Right.
So when we started talking to each other and just, going on this, he had already sent word to his parents to let them know that he's talking to someone and he wants them to start praying about it, while I was already praying about it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he had already started the process of getting permission.
Okay.
Basically,
based on
that dating process.
Right. So based on how you explained the dating relationship to the parents, because I think that makes most sense to me. It's how did the parents bless an engagement if they didn't know any part of the
because he had asked me for a picture within the first month or so of us starting to talk so that he can send to his parents. I'm like, huh? So I gave him a picture to send to his parents. He said, because I want my parents to start praying about this.
Yeah.
And then later on is when he said, if my parents don't approve, because by that time his parents have been praying for months about it.
Right.
My parents don't approve, then we cannot get married.
Right.
Because I didn't know he was still talking to his parents about marrying. I thought it was just, But
here's a picture of my girlfriend.
to his parents about marriage.
Right. Well, one of the things about, we have a saying in our culture. We have a saying, say, "Iwalewa."
Oh, yeah.
Iwalewa means the beauty of a person is in their character.
Mm.
And so, when I would talk to my parents and my siblings, they wanted to know more about her personality.
Mm.
They wanted to know more about her personality.
Mm.
As they always say, young men get carried away with the beauty, but what is the character? The character is what you're marrying for the most part.
Wow.
You need somebody who has a kind character, a person who is very considerate, a person who's not selfish, a person who is God-fearing. And if you have somebody like that, then you're blessed. And I saw all of those qualities in her and more. But on top of that, she was just very beautiful. I absolutely fell in love with her. So her beauty just with her personality, the two complement each other so well. And my parents, they trust me because we have that relationship. To be honest with them, I wasn't holding back. Every day they asked me about her personality. They said, "What is your perception?" We trust your judgment. We trained you well. You're a doctor. This is for your own good. And I told them, I said, this is what she is. She's very kind to me. She's very loving. She's just, I have nothing negative to say. I can't say anything. There's nothing bad for me to say.
She bribed me with food when I'm studying.
And she, I have to say, she was the best person I ever dated. In a short period of time, I knew in my heart that her kindness, her loving, the way she related to me, and the way we resolved conflicts very easily and very early in our relationship. We learned to pray together and laugh together and read books together. So it was like I'd known her all my life. And in those days, when you're in love, I just, nothing else was more important at a certain point. I wanted to be married to her. I really, especially after my parents said, go ahead. I said, that's it. I'm getting married. I wanted to get married that same night that they called me.
Oh, he did.
I wanted to get married that same night.
What is up with these eager beavers?
That was my proposal.
I wanted to get married that night. If I could wake up to pass it that night, we were gonna get married that night.
Okay. Yeah, my proposal went like this: 2:00 in the morning, his favorite time to call. Hey, Curl. Ring, ring. Hey, Curl. Yes. What are you doing? Sleeping. My parents said it's okay for us to get married. Okay. Bye.
Woo! That was smooth, Dad. Epic fail. Don't do that. Man, guys, I'm so sorry. I apologize. You're not getting the best, how to woo the woman advice from my father right now. I deeply apologize for that. Don't actually call your girl at 2 a.m. and be like, hey, we're getting married. That's probably not going to go over well. I'm just saying. She might not even remember. Let's try to talk to her at an hour of clear consent. Clear mental consent is possible.
Next morning, he was throwing rocks against my window again.
Oh, Lord.
Wake me up. Girl. Open the window.
Well,
Did you hear what I said last night? What? My parents said it's okay for us to get married.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. You see me, though? I would have been like, can you not yell this out for everybody to hear at this hour of the morning? Can I come down to meet you? Can we talk about this down there?
That's at Daniel's Hall at Loma University.
Well, you know what? At that point in time, I was.
He didn't even care.
No. Well, at that point in time, Candace, I was full of joy, and I felt a sense of relief, and I wanted to just make her my wife. That's all. I couldn't care less what the neighbors thought about me. They could have thought I was crazy.
The other students probably was like, what's that boy throwing rocks again? Because that's how he always did, throw rocks at my window on his way to his classes. He threw rocks at my window to wake me up like 7 something in the morning, and I'm like, I'm not an early riser. Don't wake me up early. And throwing rocks, and I opened my window.
It's called lovebird. Yes. It's called the love bug.
Girl. Yes. Did you hear what I said last night? I said, my parents said it's okay for us to get married. I was like,
great. We'll talk about it at 9. I'm going back to sleep. I'll see you at 9 at a normal hour. Oh my goodness. Man, that is wild. Okay, so we did this.
I'm still waiting for the knee.
Yeah, there's no knee involved, in case you guys hadn't picked up on that. There was no knee action. There was a rock. There was a phone call at an hour where my mom couldn't comprehend life. And somehow she ended up with this guy. So there's hope for everybody, guys. There's hope.
33 years later, I'm waiting for that knee.
I listen. She knew I was her knight in shining armor, and I was just coming to take her home.
Where's the horse?
She said, "Where's the horse?" Dad, she even made it easy for you and took you all the way to Kentucky, where there's horses everywhere, and you still didn't got no horse. No, the closest horse we got was Malachi.
He had his horse. He was on his bicycle. His knight in shining.
Hey. I had that bicycle nice and shiny when I went there. I washed it, make sure the tires were clean.
Okay.
So I'm good.
You see that? That was smooth. Yes. That was smooth in the 80s, guys. You better shine that bike. Did you see that bike my boy was driving? Ooh wee. Yeah. Yes. The struggle. Okay, so we got to know each other. We have parental permission. I'm assuming, Mom, on your side, it didn't really matter. So it was more.
I just spoke to my parents. I just spoke to my mom. I come from a single parent household.
Right.
I didn't come from the kind of structured family that he came from. I came from a single parent household. Actually, I was raised by my great aunt. My grandmother died before I was born. And my mom always worked in the city, worked at the Prime Minister's office, worked for the labor union. And so when I was a child in Grenada, and then she left when I was 9 years old, she migrated to the United States. So I grew up with my great aunt, Aunt May. I call her Aunt May. I loved her to death. And because of Aunt May, I am who I am today, because she was a loving, strong, wonderful, wonderful woman. And she imparted in me a lot of her values and a lot of her strength and the amount of love and kindness. And so I emulated Aunt May. So I just had to tell my mom. I told my mom, and Aunt May was alive at that time. She died at 96. So I just told my mom, and I told Aunt May what was happening, and Aunt May was really, really happy. And when she met Wally, she loved him to death. Aunt May and Wally, they were good buddies. And told my sisters, so everybody was pretty happy about it.
Okay, so you're engaged, preparing for marriage and stuff. You guys were 2 Black foreigners in America in the 80s. And you're acclimating, I guess Dad more so than you, Mom, but both still acclimating to the American culture while also trying to join your 2 cultures together for marriage. So how did you guys have the conversations that you needed to have in order to step into marriage based on the cultures? Because I'm thinking the cultural aspect is more going to come from Dad as far as the differences. And I mean, because Dad, you have more, there's these like set guidelines within the Yoruba culture. But with Grenada, it's a little bit, it's kind of do what you want type of thing. So Mom, you just had your own personal values and desires in how you raise, how you marry, how you raise your children. How did you guys navigate those conversations in doing so literally in the 80s as two immigrants?
Well, I recall talking to her and Melinda that I do have concerns as far as raising our kids. In America, I could see right from the time I got here, there were some things I had difficulties with. The way, if I go to a grocery store, the way sometimes kids will be talking to their parents, and just the way people relate to. I come from a culture where there's a lot of respect for older generation. There's a certain way you address people who are old enough to be your parents and stuff like that. And just, we were taught to be somewhat obedient and listen to our parents because they love us. So we had some early conversation about it's going to be very important before we even have children to understand the need to work as a team. Because if ever before there's children, there's the two of us. And our children's behavior will be a reflection of our relationship. So if I say this and she says no, it's going to be this way, it's not a good idea to be divided that way, because then kids begin to take sides, and that's very important. And that's one of the foundations for dysfunction, where you have parents, one parent being a bad one and one being a good one. So we kind of addressed that. And even when we had disagreements, even when our kids were growing up, I would say, get in the car and we would go out, and I would say, here's something that you're doing that I don't like, and we need to correct it. So we never really had that big blow up in front of the kids. We just sort of talked about it. I'm very fortunate and blessed to come from a structure that worked, because my parents raised 5 boys, and we have all done very well, whether it's, in terms of education, in terms of being married, in terms of, and it continues. It flows into the grandchildren, and, and we want to maintain that. So we have a value. We have a cultural value that we want to maintain because it works. America is a great country, but it's also the melting pot where there's so much. And what you have is a lot of young people they're violating all the past standard of ethics within societies. What you can't do this, you can't. They just do whatever they want to do, and that's kind of scary. I think children need to grow up with some structure. Structure gives you a framework to work with, and when you grow up in a structured home, it also gives you a standard of morality. Okay, especially being Christians, right? We are a Christian couple, and that's, we don't hide it. Anybody knows us that's what we are. That's who we are. So you need a framework. If children aren't raised in a structured environment, then there's no framework. They can do whatever they want, and their life become chaos. They don't know when to say no. They don't know when to say yes, and that's why it's possible for, as a psychiatrist, I treat the offsprings of foreign parents who then come to my office and say, we understand, we are educated people and this, but how come our kids are on drugs? Well, there's a reason. They really, when you dig down deep into it, they didn't have that teamwork. And so your mother and I have always been a great team. If I could say, if there's one thing about us, we have been an amazing team. We complement without telling the other one what to do. We automatically just, if he's doing something and something needs to be done, I'll do it. If I'm doing something and she needs to do a certain thing to make sure everything else goes good. So we kind of read each other very well, and that's a blessing. That's a blessing. So.
Yeah, I think on my part, even though I grew up with my grandmother, Grenada is a lot more westernized. However, one of the things that Grenadians or the people from the Caribbean, one of the ways the children are extremely obedient to their parents. We have the same sort of cultural values as far as, you respect your elders. You say good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am. You respect the older brother or older sibling in the family. And so we still have that culture, we still have that structure, and it may have been passed on from the slavery that, so they make sure that you do that. If you don't, as a child growing up in Grenada, if I pass an elder on the street and don't say hi to them, they would spank me there, and then they will go home and tell my mom or my grandmother that I did not say hi to them, and then I'll get spanked when I get home. So you better be respectful. Or if they saw me doing something down the street that was inappropriate, any elder that see a kid doing something that's inappropriate, they have the right to talk to you, discipline you, and then they go home and tell your parents. Then your parents will discipline you too. So you're like always on your P's and Q's, so to speak. And so one of the things that we agreed upon was that the other thing, that we do, we are, of course, Seventh-day Adventist Christians. And there are several books in our Christendom that's been written as how to raise children. Even before we were married, while we were dating, some of our activities on a Friday evening at sunset, some of our activities were reading about relationships, reading about child rearing, and books like The Adventist Home. We would sit down and read those together in front of the public health building, because I was attending the School of Public Health.
Under the tree.
Under the tree.
And we would lay down a nice cloth. She made the sandwiches, whatever, and we'll eat and we'll read together.
And so we would read that. We would read messages to young people, and then we'll buy different other books that talked about how to raise children, and so we'll have we had a framework on how we wanted to raise children. We didn't just go into, and then I used to look at people who had, friends of mine who had two-parent families, because I didn't come from a two-parent family. I looked at friends of mine who came from two-parent families and saw how they were raised, and think about how I would want to raise my children. Those are some of the things, some of the ways that, and then I learned a lot from him. I never really told him about it, but I learned so much from him about how to raise children, how children should grow up. And that's how, because of his family background, because of his family values, and I respected them so much. And I'm like, that's how I want to raise, because him and his brothers are so close. The relationship they have with their parents, so strong, and something that I wanted my children to have. So I decided I am going to emulate that. I am going to pull from that. So.
Wow. Okay. So you guys had talked a lot about how you wanted to be united before kids, like how you guys were going to make decisions, how you guys were going to resolve conflict and try to quote unquote master it. Not that you can master that. I feel like that's something you continue to develop, but like having a solid foundation and blueprint or a strategy, a game plan for how you do finances, how you communicate, how you all those important things when you're trying to join with someone else, and realizing you guys do have some cultural similarities, which is super helpful, that it wasn't totally different, but that you guys could relate and at least understand the other person in trying to come together, and then seeking out advice even from books and like reading, and then having those discussions on like, okay, we just read that, how do you feel about that statement or this paragraph or whatever, so what do we do with this statement for our future? What will that look like? What should that look like? And growing in that. So I guess my next question, kind of transitioning into the parenting side, since you guys have already kind of touched on it. You guys have already gone through the stages of raising like babies, and then babies, toddlers, then your teens, when your kids leave home, and then when your children are full-fledged adults. So can you kind of like walk through those stages? Because at this point, you have the three of us, and something that I have a hard time trying to explain to people is when I'm at school, or when I'm in the workplace, when I'm anywhere, unless you've read my last name, I am a black female in America. That's how I'm seen. They don't think about, or they don't know that I'm from a dual culture family raised in my own quote unquote primary culture. So I don't know. I don't know what it's like to have to come from a different country, and then meet someone from their own country, and then raise your child in a country neither of you grew up in, and trying to navigate the fact that your children are going to be American. They are born Americans, so they're going to adapt to American things. They're not going to be 100% Nigerian. They're not going to be 100% Grenadian. They're not going to be 100% American. So how did you decide, like how did you have those conversations with us as kids? How did you decide, okay, we need to figure out the piece, how to explain our child's culture to them, and allow them to figure out the bits and pieces to become whoever they're going to be, which is a mix of three very different cultures as black kids in America. Like there's so many layers to this.
There's a lot of layers.
It's
well,
hard
we
to
figure
explain.
If we feed you Nigerian food, Grenadian food, and American food,
we're going to be all right. See? That's all you need. You needed some eba, you needed some oil down, and you needed some cheeseburgers. You're good. That's it. You're fine. You are acclimated to all the things.
And we
let
did
them
that,
loose.
and you guys are good to go.
Run free. You're gonna be okay. No, please don't do that, guys. Please don't do that. Oh my goodness. No, I mean, it's just, I'm thinking of.
I think whatever culture you come from, the main thing to show your children in the home is structure and love. And once you do that, you allow your children, you let your children know that, number one, they're the most important person or people in this home. They're the most special people in this home. And you love them unconditionally. And, I go to some people's homes and they have a room where, oh, the kids can't go into this room. That's for when guests come, special people come. Well, my kids are the most important guests in my home. So they should be in the good room, in the special room. These are the best dishes. These are for when guests come. My kids are the most important guests in my home. So they should eat from the best dishes. So I treat my children as the most important and the most special guests in my home. So when you teach your children, and when you show your children that they're loved no matter what, they're valued and they're cared for no matter what, and their opinion matters. Their opinion matter no matter what. And I would tell you guys, talk to you guys. I used to talk to you all so much even when you were toddlers, when you were little, you would follow me everywhere, and I'll be constantly talking to you when you didn't even understand what I'm saying, but you look at me like, okay, the crazy lady is talking again to me. I don't know what she's saying, but I'm listening. So you found it a safe place to talk to me and to tell me everything because I talked to you and was open to you and would tell you everything.
Mm-hmm.
And would respond to you honestly and openly, even though it's the most alarming thing that you would tell me. I would not make you think that it's the most alarming thing or the most scary thing that you're telling me. I'm like, okay, this is what we'll do. This is what is going to happen. I let you know that I love you so much that there is nothing that you can do to take that love away, to make me not love you. Your dad and I love you so much that no matter what you do, we will always love you. So it doesn't matter what it is, we want the best for you. Whatever you do, this is a safe place. You can come and talk to us about it.
To hear the rest of this episode, tune in next week here on First Paso.